I'm going to do the social psychology of attitudes. I have a bad cold. I tried to record it last night, but it sounded really bad, so I have a lot of Sudafed in me, so my words are a little hard to pronounce sometimes because my mouth is a little dry. But here goes. The Social Psychology of Attitudes by Lisa Johnson. The attitude behavior consistency has been a perennial research question in the social sciences. Some research examines the effect of attitudes on behavior, and some examines the effects of behavior on attitudes. Attitudes and actions are very closely related. They are often consistent because they influence each other in both superficial and deliberate ways. Does behavior affect attitude, or does attitude affect behavior? It's a catch-22. Attitude affects behavior like our behavior affects our attitude. If we change our behavior, our attitudes will change to reflect our new behavior. If we change our attitudes, our behaviors will change to reflect the new attitude. We have programmed beliefs or thought patterns that determine our values, which affects our attitudes, which therefore determines our behaviors. There are two ways to get to the same place. The first way is to change our programmed beliefs and thought patterns that determine our values, which affects our attitudes, which therefore determines our behavior. This process can take a long time. The second way, which is the quicker and more effective way, is if we change our behavior first. This is a more effective way to take control of life circumstances, and then our attitudes will change to reflect our new behavior. What is attitude? An attitude is a learned tendency to evaluate objects, people, or issues in a particular way. An attitude can either be positive, negative, or ambivalent. There are three components of an attitude. There's the cognitive component, it's what you think. Then there's the affective component, that is what you feel. Then last, there's the behavioral component, that is what you do about it. Of the cognitive component, the thoughts and conclusions about a topic or object. Example, you believe smoking is bad for your health. That type is called a cognitive component of attitude. The affective component, it relates to a person's feelings or emotions toward an object. There are hundreds of different emotions that humans can experience, and any one of these could be an affective component of attitude. Example, why do people still smoke when they know it is bad for their health? Then the last one is the behavioral component. That is the actions we take about a certain object or topic. Example, I know smoking is bad for my health. That is why I do not smoke. When are your attitudes likely to influence or determine your behavior? When you anticipate a favorable outcome or response for behaving that way, or your attitudes are extreme or expressed often. You form an attitude towards experience. You are very knowledgeable about a subject, or you personally stand to gain or lose something about a specific subject. Attitudes guide behavior without much thought. When people have a well-established attitude about a certain object, either how much they like it or how much they dislike it, it makes it easier to decide what to do, and therefore is much more likely to guide that behavior. Burroughs Frederick Skinner was an American behavioralist. The next slide will tell you one of Skinner's beliefs. Skinner believed that human behavior is determined to a large extent by its consequences, and not simply through the transfer of information or advice. If people were not very environmentally conscious, few people would change their behavior based on the advice of others. when their quality of life is affected by environmental problems such as water storages or air pollution, change can occur very quickly. The factor here for changing our behavior is the change in attitude. Change can effectively and quickly lead to change in our behavior. What is behavior? Behavior is the way we act, the things we say, the things we do, our facial expressions, hand gestures, eye contact, word choices. We tend to behave the way we act. How does behavior influence attitude? Well, 10 years after 9/11, Americans are wrestling with their opinion of Muslims. The behaviors of what happened on 9/11 has greatly influenced the attitudes of the Americans toward Muslims. Nearly half of Americans would be uncomfortable with a woman wearing a burqa, a mosque being built in their neighborhood, or Muslims praying in an airport. These feelings towards Muslims has caused a lot of dissonance in many people. Many people hold conflicting thoughts about Muslims. They know that only a few are responsible for the hijackings, yet because the hijackers were Muslims, many people have mixed feelings about the Muslims. People expert that all things in their mind to agree with each other. When two items in your mind disagree, dissonance occurs. The mind does not want to be in a state of dissonance, so something must happen to resolve this. Leon Festinger was an American social psychologist. He was responsible for the development of the theory of cognitive dissonance. What is cognitive dissonance? It is the feeling of uncomfortable tension which comes from holding two conflicting facts in the mind at the same time. It is often strongest when we believe something about ourselves and then do something against that belief. Example, you believe cheating is wrong, yet you cheat to get a better grade. Cognitive dissonance commonly occurs in situations in which you become uncomfortably aware that your behavior and your attitudes are in conflict. It is an unpleasant state of psychological tension, which is a dissonance. It occurs when there is an inconsistency between two thoughts or perceptions, which is the cognitions. The state of dissonance is so unpleasant that we are strongly motivated to reduce it. Cognitive dissonance is greater when the decision has a greater impact on us. Example, if we are buying a new car and could not decide between two different cars, the dissonance would be greater than if we were buying two pairs of new jeans. Cognitive dissonance. Leon Festinger developed cognitive dissonance in the 1950s to explain how cult members were persuaded by their leader, Mrs. Keach, that on December 21st, the world would be destroyed and they alone would be rescued by aliens. Festinger himself had infiltrated the cult. He was quite amused if aliens actually did infiltrate the cult. When it did not happen, the dissonance of the thought of being so stupid was so great that instead the cult members revised their beliefs to meet the obvious fact. Because the aliens were so concerned for the cult that they saved the world instead. That is how cognitive dissonance leads to attitude change. If you can't explain your behavior, you may change your attitude so that it is the same as your behavior. Thank you very much. Goodbye.